United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can't figure out how to switch it around right now. So.
Okay. Picking people up.
Yeah, it's not
Hold on,
oriented.
here, the recorder's now.
All right. Call to order.
You want me to do roll call?
Yep, that's fine.
Chairman Cable,
Yes.
Vice Chair Darling, Secretary Straub, I'm here as much as I can this way. Daryl Nichols,
Here.
Leroy Ziske.
Present.
All right.
Acre Lake on, Wilkie Road was the major changes after we approved it.
Is the recorder up on the desk?
Those
Yes.
should be taken
Because
care
it
of.
goes,
We have
even with the extender, it's
to
pointing
send
out.
that through this motion. Or what, because there's a lot of things missing off the plan. And see, we don't have a enforcer at the present time. I think it's duty at the
It
time.
won't orient.
Stuff gets on the plan, so.
Jesus, that is auto rotate.
It's supposed to auto
I
rotate.
agree, because the citizens' comments when they showed up at the meeting that night weren't addressed either. So I think it needs to be looked at again.
Quite like that, that was number 4 on the, unfinished business, or new business, unfinished business.
I would move that we delete the pool, spas, and hot tubs, because by the time we get to the filling, we'll cover quite a bit of time already this evening.
Get rid of the swimming pools and put extracted in as number 2.
The September meeting that did not occur is on page 1 at the bottom, the very bottom paragraph. Motion by Darrell
Why
and
is
supported
it
by
not
Howard
orienting?
to forward all information sent and received from the Township Engineer Kavinsky and Township Attorney Gary Bondi regarding solar overlay, and that the words regarding solar overlay should be added
It's
to
not
that.
orienting. Do me a favor. Hold on to.
Yeah, a couple places,
I apologize, I got about that.
that's all right. Just don't keep calling me.
You're gonna call him late LZ. Is there any other additions or corrections to the minutes of the meeting of August 2nd? Hearing none, do I?
On Saturday afternoons, uses it as his own personal storage. Basically, that summer he dumped a mountain of concrete, huge,
Close to the window.
from
The
my
signal
house.
here.
When I asked him, I told him I didn't want it there, and he was gonna just move it on to Alan Strauss corn at the time. This was last summer. And I said, you're not gonna wreck Alan's crops. You can leave it there. When the corn is down, I want it gone. Of course, he didn't move it. Last July, there were still trucks coming back. Evening runs, never during the day. This is always in the evening, 1 or 2 trucks. I stopped one of them and I asked him what he was hauling, and he said top. And I said, topsoil? And he said, yeah, so I let him go back. Next night, another truck. After he left, I went back and looked, and there's 7 piles of absolute crap fill back there. Big chunks of asphalt and concrete. And I called Ed and I told him that had to stop, and I wanted it out of there. And I said, you still haven't moved my concrete. And he said, oh, well, I'm working on it, you know, which was a crock. And, anyway, so, that wasn't, you know, these ponds could have been done a long time ago. And I've been trying to be patient, but I just had my fill. And one night in July, it was just after that incident where I called him on the terrible fill he was littering my property with. He showed up at about 8:30, and I went back to ask him what he was doing back there at 8:30, and it ended up with Ed asking me how I'd like it, waking up back there in a puddle of blood with my head split open. So, I called the cops, had him read trespass. That was the last time Ed was on my property. You don't have to take my word for it, because Ed came in to Township Hall the next day, and he told the supervisor and Ron Ron Youngblood about it. He also lied to Ron Youngblood because he said that Alan Stroud, one of his crew and my neighbor, asked me if they could finish the ponds without Ed around, and that I had said no, they had to clear all their stuff out. And that was a complete lie. In fact, I did Ed a favor and let his crew finish without him. I also pulled his permission. I had given him permission to put in a culvert for his 37-acre pond across my property. I removed that permission after he threatened me. When I did it by, in writing to Edge Road Trucking, because Ed's not on email, I told them that permission was revoked, period. And the response I got was that this will have to be discussed with our lawyer. Well, either he was trying to intimidate me with a lawyer or the expense of a lawyer, or he thinks he actually has some sort of say in decisions I make about my property. None of those are acceptable. It's my property. I make those decisions. So, he just keeps all these ponds open so that he's got storage yards and dump sites all over the place. That's how, if he had finished the ponds a year and a half ago, he wouldn't have a place to dump his concrete. And the evidence of that is that when I kicked him off the property, it took his guys 2 weeks to finish. And 2 or 3 moving his mountain of millings and moving that concrete out. So that could have been done at any time. He just takes his equipment when the sand runs out and moves it to the next project so he can keep digging sand out. And then when people say they want theirs finished, well, the ponds have filled up and he has to pump them back out. In the meantime, he can dump whatever he wants back on his construction sites where people don't go because it's a freaking mess back there all the time. Every one of them. So he's basically to make money off it.
Okay.
And the planning commission, if they continue to grant him permits, when he's got open permits, you're just enabling and encouraging him to do that. And
I hear you,
think it's
sir.
gotta stop.
No, I appreciate it. It's been 5 minutes and we asked that we should keep it to a couple. I heard your concerns.
If you'd like to know any other further details, just
Yep,
ask and I'd be happy to.
that's fine, sir.
We
I
also
appreciate it.
have a copy of the email that, and the letter that you sent to the township regarding the
Yep.
remove, or from, Ron Youngblood, that he visited with you about the removing the permission for the culvert.
Yep.
And that we got that documentation.
Great.
I brought mine.
We're aware of it.
Yeah, and he won't be able to dig that pond with nowhere to put the water. Everybody knows that.
All right. Thank you much. Anybody else? See nothing else for citizens' time? Next thing on the agenda is a public hearing. I think we need a motion to close the meeting and to allow the public hearing to take place. Is that correct?
Nope, a motion to open the public
A
hearing.
motion to open the public hearing. Imagine that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Allow the public hearing to take place.
Call for public comment then.
I guess, yeah.
Anybody's
Who
opinions
wants
on-
to start with a public comment?
regarding specifically the solar?
Yeah, if, maybe I should start, I've thought about this a lot, you know, in August, we sent this to the township board. We thought the ordinance itself was done. There's no reason in my mind to have a quote-unquote solar overlay. This was started by somebody else, really, that's not even part of the township anymore. So, I mean, I welcome all comments, but, the ordinance itself is done and passed, so. This is just about the overlay, which is what this map is here.
The solar ordinance was approved by the planning commission on July 5th of 2021.
So I'm looking forward to all comments. I started to see a hand before I opened my mouth.
Oh, yeah, so what you just said, this is already going through, like, there's nothing, is that what you just pretty much said?
Well,
Cause I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that have been offered the same thing, and they gotta pay a lot of money to get all that crap removed once once the project's done. Like that, all that stuff just gets left. Like, what's that gonna do to everybody's property values around here? It's all gonna be behind my house for the most part. I guess it's a lot to worry about. What's that gonna do to the wildlife that's out there? The deer and the turkey, they're constantly crossing the road right there. I'm just curious on what all this is gonna cause in the long run. Do we get to tap into this as residents? Do we get to use this power when our power goes out constantly?
The power goes directly into the grid, but there is a
I mean,
portion.
why is it here? Why is it in our area? When everybody else is not wanting these things, we're bringing it in, but yet if we lose our power constantly, cause I'm in a weird square that always loses power, that if it's right behind my house and I can't tap into it to use that power, why would I want it there? Why would other residents around my area want it there?
Oh, we need to get your name and address.
Yep,
For the minutes.
that's true. We do need your name and address for the minute.
Philip Bardell.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Philip Bardell.
Philip.
B-A-R-D-E-L or P-E-L-L?
Hello.
And where you at, Philip?
1300 Oceanager.
Okay.
If you want, I can read part of the ordinance which has been completed. What this hearing is regarding this map.
And the map is right behind my house, that's why. So you're already saying it's already done.
Well,
Like there's
let me read you some of the things that we've got put in place specifically for, the abandonment and decommissioning. Following the operation life of the project, the applicant shall perform decommission and removal of the solar array system and all components. The applicant must prepare a decommission plan and submit it to the planning commission for review prior to, or for approval prior to the issuance of a special use. Under this plan, all structures, concrete, piping, facilities, and other projects-related materials above ground and any structures up to 42 inches below the grade shall be removed and taken off-site for disposal. Any solar array or contamination of photovoltaic cells, devices that is not operated for a continuous period of 12 months shall be considered abandoned and shall be removed and taken off-site under the decommission plan. The ground must be restored to its original topography within 365 days of abandonment or decommission. Restoration Restoration shall include bringing soil to the composition and to ensure agricultural use upon restoration. Soil tests shall be required as part of development and prior to decommission. The soil test must be performed in the same manner as most soil tests to the time of application. If no soil test exists prior to the application of the special use, soil testing must be performed in an acre grid equivalent to 25% of the net land area. Soil shall be brought back to pre-development state within 365 days of the abandonment and decommission. And then the next portion is about security bond and the engineer's review and that. But does that kind of answer some of the things that basically there's a lot of contingencies put in specifically that is going to be returned back to an agricultural productive state.
If during this 25 years, what does that do to my property value? Of having solar panels around my house everywhere. Nobody wants to live by wind turbines. I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna wanna live by a bunch of solar panels.
May I make a comment on that?
Absolutely, that's what this is.
Okay, I'm Clara Ostrander, from Milan Township, and we are landowners that are participating in the solar panel project. Before we made our decision, to be part of the project, we did travel around to other solar panels that have been in place, not only in Michigan, but also in Ohio and Indiana. And took time knocking on doors and talking to people that are affected by it. We had no negativity. I mean, we took several weeks out of our time to do this. speaking to other homeowners that were involved. I see it as a positive input to the community, to moving forward to the next generation. And also, Apex specifically has been contributing to at least to the Milan Township area and the community and supporting, the community.
How have they been doing that?
Would you like to comment on your?
How have you been supporting the community?
Is that okay with the board for me to answer?
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I just, our philosophy is to, Brian O'Shea, Apex Clean Energy, I should introduce myself. Our philosophy is to be involved and engaged in the community. We're not just here to build a project and disappear. I mean, we're here to invest in the community. So whether it's, community cleanups or getting involved with the schools or, we've got a community grant program where, organizations can apply to, to seek support with whatever they're working on. But in terms of like what we're doing in the community, that's just a couple of things. And then
That you're currently doing,
that
like
we're,
now?
that we're currently doing. And if you were done, Claire, I can make a comment. I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm happy to make a quick comment just on the solar overlay district in general, which is what the hearing's about. For us as a company, we're neutral on the topic of whether there is or is not a solar overlay. For people who might, have a question, this map, the area shaded in black, is not an area where we are proposing to put solar panels in this black area. This is, my understanding from the Planning Commission, this would be a restriction on where solar panels could go. They could not go anywhere else in the township. They could only go in the solar overlay district. And from our standpoint, the area of the township we're looking at is an even smaller cross-section of this area that's in black. And later after the meeting, when it's not the Planning Commission's time, we're happy to visit with anyone who's got questions about the project specifics. But I know this hearing is not about the project; it's just about the solar overlay district and the map
You
in
could
general.
back up just real quick and define straight out what is a solar overlay district, just to start baseline, for people that might not know.
Well, I guess I can explain it. It was Mr. Youngblood's idea that we should have a district where this could happen and only happen, and this is my opinion, I'm not speaking for the entire board here, I would not. To me, it's not any unit of government's responsibility to pick winners and losers. If a company wants to come in and pick solar panels, they should be able to go to a landowner and say, are you interested in my project or not? I believe that whoever's made the payments on that property is paying the taxes on that property. It's a property rights issue. So to me, I personally am not in favor of an overlay district because there could be another company come in from another direction and want to have a solar panel up here. And because this area is not part of this overlay district, they wouldn't have the same opportunity as somebody that lives in this area. So I do not think it's government's job to pick winners and losers on property rights. I mean, I understand, I live on Ostrander Road too. I wouldn't be excited to look out front and see solar panels, but we did in the ordinance, in our ordinance, it will be fenced. It'll be a 7-foot fence. There'll be natural screening put in that will grow as tall as the peak of the solar panels. So it'll be my way of dealing quite well with whatever one of my neighbors chooses to do with his or her property. And I guess I figure that's fair. This overlay was not asked for by Apex Energy, was not asked for by this Planning Commission. This was somebody else that thought we should have a control over that, and I personally feel it was unnecessary. So that's my
Do you know
opinion.
why?
Hmm?
Do you know why? My name's
I-
Gary Brewer, by the way.
I cannot answer for somebody else. It wouldn't be fair. It'd just be my
So
guess.
there's no good reason why you have to have an overlay district is what I'm asking?
Any of your other projects, have you ever had one?
We've seen, wind overlay and solar overlay districts are common across the state as a way to say, in your ordinance, you could say it's allowed in all Ag 1 and Ag 2, which I think is what the current ordinance says. And if you were someone who said, well, I don't want it to be everywhere in the township, maybe it makes sense by the transmission lines where there's easy transmission access, but we don't want to just let solar panels be on every piece of Ag 1 property in the township. So as a way to inform your planning efforts, maybe you would do an overlay. you don't have to do it, and again, from our perspective, it, you know, doesn't affect us one way or the other. It's just how you wanna handle your future land use planning.
Cause this was not drawn up by anybody in the industry, and it was not drawn up by an engineer, because the main caveat that you guys, or that the solar industry utilizes, is what their distance is to a transmission line, where they have an access point where they can put it in for the net metering, and it has to have the ability to handle that volume of wattage and amps, correct?
Yeah, it has to, a transmission line has to have available capacity.
Capacity.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, also though, just as a side note, because I know it's come up in some other townships, I believe Ida and Petersburg Township, or Summerfield are about to, they're just getting started. Milan's way ahead, they've gotten theirs done, Augusta had theirs done a year ago. But some of them, they're talking about that where they wanna site solar, that they wanna rezone it as industrial. And the way we've got ours written for here, I'll read it. An ordinance is to amend the London Township zoning ordinance to the authority to authorize large solar energy systems as a special use. And what that is specifically, the special use means they have to bring their plans to the planning commission. Because if you, let's say they come in and they wanna put it in this area, and like with some of these other townships, they zone it as industrial. So let's say 10 years from now, they come up with a new cell, somebody with physics comes up with something that's gonna create energy even more efficient. They don't need the amount of acreage, so they decommission it. But the fact that you've already rezoned this as industrial, then you could have a Ford plant, you could have some other manufacturing, you could have anything else come in. So the main thing that I wanna stress, that the foresight that we put in, it's a special use, so that way you don't open the door to.
Maximum power that the power lines that we are talking about, the main power, is there a maximum input to those power lines? In other words, what I'm saying is, you've got a solar system, the next door neighbor's got one, there's another one down by Ida. Is there a saturation point reached on the power lines, is my question.
I could speak to this unless you want to say anything, Nick. Go for it. So for this project, we have permission to put 150 megawatts of solar energy on the grid. That's for our project. I don't know if, and the line might have more capacity today, it might not, but that's an ever-changing thing. You know, if a coal plant on the line retires 2 years from now, okay, now all of a sudden there's 2,000 more megawatts of power on that line. So I don't know its exact capacity today, but I do know for our project, we have permission to go to 150, and that's it.
I got a question. So like, have you in your past experience with these overlays or not, would they have to run more lines if there was a big project being developed? Like would DTE or whatnot run lines to that project just for that and put those big power lines straight through everybody's, cause then they have the right of way to do that. They don't have to, I mean, they can just go.
Imminent
Now
domain.
that's what I would be concerned about, you know, like if they wanted them way over here, but there's no power lines, they're gonna put it all through everybody's property to get to that power line, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Has that happened in the past or?
Sure, yes, so Nick Alexander with Apex, so that would add a considerable amount of expense to this project. And at the end of the day, it would make it economically uncompetitive versus the other solar project that didn't have to. That means, okay, that this could be a competitive power price project. If you were to run new lines to a field, it would have, you know, tens of millions of dollars.
But I mean, the way the country's trying to go, I could see grants and everything to take care of that. And that's my concern, if you don't have an area, I mean, I'm kinda on the fence on it, because with the area that has the lines in it, at least you're limited to that area and not creating more lines of power going through the rest of the township to get to the other areas of solar in the future. Because, I mean, it's one thing to have a solar district, but now you got lines going all the way through everybody's property, and I mean, those are major, I mean, they're huge, so that would kinda, you know what I mean? I don't know, it's kinda both ways.
I'll say for our project's purposes for Azalea Solar, all the connection lines, transmission lines were burying underground. There are no overheads other than the existing transmission line. So that's a potential outcome, and that was based on community feedback from landowners, from residents that they didn't want overhead power lines, and so we evaluated the feasibility of doing it underground, and that's sort of our proposal.
What are the depth of those power lines? The depth?
The depth, typically around 48 inches is what you'll look to, 42 to 48 is what you'll look to bury those trench.
Well, nobody hits one of those.
Below drain tile.
So,
Hopefully.
Oh, not really.
is there anybody else that has any comments they'd like to make?
I do.
Speak up.
I'm Joe Usta. I own agritourism business here, Lavender Lane, Lavender Farm. And my property is located smack dab in this solar overlay district. And I'm really concerned with property behind me. There's a few hundred acres that were just sold. And we bring in thousands of people from several states. And I don't think anyone will want to come here and take pictures of lavender with solar panels in the backyard. I'm concerned with what this gentleman on the board just said about creating new power lines, and I haven't heard Apex Solar say that that is completely off the table. My understanding is if this district is lineated the way it is, that they're gonna try to grab what they can. I mean, I have to think like that, right? And if some neighbors are gonna sell out, we're ready to be seeing solar panels all the way down Plank Road. I mean, I don't like how it looks. I think it looks terrible. I think when I go down 23 by Brighton, I get the glare in my eyes. I know it's a far ways away, and maybe you can do something with screening and with trees and stuff like that, and I think most people don't have a problem if you can kind of tuck it away and hide it, but I don't like this idea at all. I mean, we got a dragway over here that's gonna be making noise again. We got crappy water. We're gonna have solar panels. I mean, like, just throw it all on us. I just feel like, what the hell? Like, we don't need this. And then also, the solar overlay district, could this potentially be changed to a wind turbine district legally? Like, what are we getting ourselves into here? I mean, who really wants this?
That young blood guy.
Why? We're ag. Like,
I mean, this is-
ag. We move here for
Wind
land.
energy has the same challenges as solar does, is where they can access the existing grid for getting in, and that's where you see, the different wind generating, facilities across the state. Like the first one was up there around Elkton and the Thumb, and since then they've developed better ones, require blades, different things, but it's all where they can get access or get that energy back into the grid for how they're done. The other thing is on wind, it also comes back to the wind speed studies that they put in. There's places where you're not gonna put a wind generator just simply because we don't get the velocity that would make those things run at, basically top speed's 45 RPMs. They put a greater load on those generators until it exceeds that, then they just put the brakes on and they sit, quiet until the wind dies back down, because they've got these things well engineered. But those are different things that they've learned in the last 20-some years on wind generation.
I understand that, but I'm also in a very peculiar area where I lost my entire crop a few years ago because of how the wind comes and how low it is over there. And I don't have the measurements on that, but I want to know the legality on can this be on the
This
table.
particular ordinance,
This
this was a solar ordinance, it wasn't a green energy ordinance, or, there really wasn't anything else open the doors to something else. It specifically was wrote at this, what these guys are talking about.
Right.
And it's actually more restrictive and including more requirements than what Milan Township has or what Augusta Township has. And then also for a different purview, down Erie Township, down by Stearns Road, they've just put in, they just, I think, finished that up sometime here, not all that long ago, because it looks like they were just finishing up things and they're just getting started with the plantings and what they've got to do there. But I recognize the solar array that you're talking about there at M14 and US 23.
Yeah.
That's more of a billboard for Detroit Edison than it is for being.
But it's dangerous too. It catches the glare. Like, I gotta assume the same thing's gonna happen here. And I'm by power lines. I'm like 400 feet away. So then, if they're tapping off it, then they're probably gonna be close to it. And I have beautiful acres behind me where people love and they enjoy nature and photography and all that. If there's solar panels there, it's gonna be terrible for everything I created.
Do you own that property behind you then?
I don't, but it just got sold. But I have to assume that it's gonna go to solar now.
Sears
I have to
bought
assume,
it.
right?
Sears bought it. That's a group of investors out of Chicago.
Go ahead, Pam.
Okay, concerning some of the buffers. This is from the ordinance. The evergreen or native vegetative buffer shall be composed of native or evergreen trees expected to reach a mature height equal to the height of the solar panel array at maximum tilt and be a minimum of 4 feet in height at the time of planting. Cause this was huge with me too. I really zeroed in on what you're talking about. Shrubs shall be a minimum 2 feet in height. The evergreen trees shall be spaced no more than 15 feet apart on center from the central trunk of one plant to the central trunk of the next plant. Native trees shall be placed no more than 30 feet apart on center, and shrubs shall be spaced no more than 7 feet apart on center. All unhealthy, 60% dead or greater, and dead material shall be replaced by the applicant within 1 year or the next appropriate planting period, whichever occurs first. Would you guys like to add something to that? I know you and I had extensive discussions about the buffers and the trees and all the natural stuff.
No, I mean, that's just a consistent requirement in both ordinances that, the project has to be screened from adjacent residences. One other thing that is different compared to I think the large panel project, that you're talking about by the highway is we're designing this project with what are called single high portrait panels, which is just a single panel on a tracker, which Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, at like maximum tilt to be no more than about 10 feet. And that's only like at sunrise and sunset. And so these aren't, 20-foot high, really large solar panels like the one project you might be referring to. They're, we've taken kind of feedback throughout this process to design a project that is, as non-invasive as possible and as a good neighbor as possible. Unlike the dragway or unlike even a farm operation, a solar farm's not gonna generate any dust, any noise on your property. It's, once construction's done, it's just gonna sit there, generate clean power, have jobs that were created during construction, pay property taxes that the township can use for, investing in water, investing in roads, investing in whatever it is that you all wanna invest that tax revenue in. And then just generate money for the landowners that ultimately get spent, in the local economy, whether it's bolstering a farm operation or whatever else they're gonna invest those resources in.
Because Brian, as you know, that was my biggest thing too, with the aesthetics. It's like everything else sounds cool, but I'm all about the trees and all this, so, yeah. And at one point, we had a diagram even, that we shaded in as far as like the angle looking out at the house and.
Now this is all around the solar panels on all sides.
Yep.
And if disease comes, who maintains it? Do they replant it? Do they?
Correct.
And the solar project is inspected annually by the township.
Yeah, it's this line here. All unhealthy, because I thought of that too. All unhealthy, 60% dead or greater, and dead material shall be replaced by the applicant within 1 year or the next appropriate planting period, whichever comes first. So that's covered.
Okay. And do we know the proposed area of this project?
I can visit with you at that. It's just, it's not the subject of this hearing, but I have some, I could share with you, and we're not
I'm
where you're
interested
located.
in that too.
Actually, I just have a comment against that. Well, the dragway has brought money to the community for years too, until it just recently shut down. So why, what would make that a problem? I've been here almost 32 years now. I grew up here. Dragways always ran, always brought money to the community. The small businesses we had, and one that we still have around here, always got money through them. They put money towards the new roads out here. What I wanna see, my biggest thing with this is that I don't see this bringing a new road or something else, like when we just had the 23 shutdown. Ostrander's getting broke up already.
Oh, yeah.
So, are they gonna pay to fix that at least? To help
No, but
someone?
there is gonna be considerable tax base.
Yeah, Brian might give a
Considerable
value.
tax raise, is that what you said?
No,
Tax base.
the
Base.
approximate tax base.
Well, yeah, that's what tax rate, yeah, I'm gonna pay for it, exactly.
No.
If-
No, I don't think your taxes, but the taxes that would be generated from the
They're
solar
gonna pay, cause
project.
they're also
We'll
gonna be
pay the
paying
town.
personal property tax. Every one of those solar panels pays taxes.
Yes.
Correct? What's the estimated value on the project that you guys are conceptually looking at in Milan Township and London Township?
Like the kind of like construction value of the project essentially. I think it's somewhere in like the, like $150 million range. That's the whole project, and then taxable value is half that. But that's, somewhere in that range. Once we have a final design, we'll have a better final tax calculation, but.
And I'm
that-
certain
that's
most
what
of the panels will be in Milan Township. The big thing in London Township will be connection to the High Line. That will be 90% of what happens in London Township.
Will be 90% of what happens in London
90% of the solar project that happens in London Township will be connection to that power line. Most of the panels, I
You
mean,
see, I live right on Wells Road, so I'm lucky
Cool.
like that, because I have
Right.
London Township that I live in,
I was
and
told
Milan
by-
the other, so is it going right through my house, or?
no, I doubt it. I don't hear anything in plans. They're gonna run power lines over a good chunk of, I was told at one point, not too long ago, by somebody that's not here in the room from the solar, they had enough acres signed up in Milan Township to not have any actual solar panels in London. I don't know if that's true or not, but I guess there's just tremendous amounts of west of the expressway that's interested in being part of it. These folks behind you are on the other side of Wells, they're in Milan Township. You know, London Township is, so, I mean, we're gonna have transit lines underground and whatever it takes to get it to the power line. London Township's not gonna have a tremendous amount of solar panels for you to have to look at. I mean, so, anyways, there's other hands back there.
There's other hands.
Yeah, I got Dave Daniel on Cone Road. I got two questions. One, what's the history of property value around where these things are? And question two, how do you know, if you're not that close with your neighbor, if he's making deals to do this? Is there, something put out?
You're gonna have to go meet your neighbor.
As a property owner, that question comes up anytime there's a development, what the impact is. Because up in Augusta Township, Milan Township, they had the Nexus pipeline that went through. And everybody was very concerned about what that was going to do to real estate values. And this thing is like 42 inches in diameter, and they're pumping gas like mad through this thing. And it's running, and as of last spring, virtually all the home values that are practically sitting on top of the thing have gone up. There's a development up there just right across from Lincoln School, and those values on all those homes increased. And so that was our concern for where the values would go on for some of those folks up there, or even over in Lenawee County. And what they found is, here's a gas line, which is far more dangerous in many aspects than what a solar array would be. And it has not impacted that. And for some people in the Ann Arbor area, they knew they were moving out next door to a solar array, and they knew it had no dust, no noise, no loud music, no extra cars. Some of those people find that enticing.
But that gas line's not visible.
You should like living next
Right.
I've heard within a mile radius it will lower your, not much, but it potentially could 5% or something like that.
So there's not gonna be an update of which land is already being sold or anything? Is there a place to go to find that out?
The county equalization would have that from sales
I'm not gonna go up and down
studies.
to every one of my neighbors and ask them what his
I don't think it's a sale, it's a lease.
thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I think it's
Isn't
a
it
lease,
It's not a sale, it's a
so,
lease.
yeah,
Yeah, your neighbor still owns the land.
They're just leasing it to the solar
Yeah,
company.
I'm just wondering who's participating.
Yeah, we wanna see where it is.
yeah, and I can't tell you.
Okay.
Well, we will have to come for an application, for a special use permit, and we will have to detail out, here's all the parcels, and all that. We're not done yet with designing the project, is the short answer.
We don't know yet.
So we don't know where the proposed site is.
I mean, I can talk to you about it after the meeting, but we don't have a final area here.
No,
No, it's
what
not
the
here.
area. That is not what the meeting is.
That's just the overlay area.
Well, that is a proposed overlay district, that's all it is.
So it could happen within the area, is what.
It could
That's
be.
what the meeting's
Anywhere
about.
within the area.
It could happen.
My name's Leonard Ostrander. Many of you might know me. I had Walker Farms water hauling. I know there's no water. There's also, and I believe I'm correct, in Milan Township, there's a global planning. We cannot sell any of our farmland and build a house for a resident. My father-in-law was Fred Walker. Mr. Sheets knows him, Mr. Kiger knows him. He had 120 acres on the south side of Ostrander Road. He had no health insurance, nor did my mother-in-law. She came down with COPD. He sold that land to Mr. Sheets to pay hospital bills. Now, my wife has Crohn's disease. Yes, we are part of the solar panel. if my wife gets ill, the money generated from those solar panels to our house income will help pay for our bills. I've never went to the township and bitched about anybody's, excuse my language, personal properties that they have. The old Azalea store was a car lot at one time. Junk. You can drive down any of these roads and pick out anything you want and complain about it. It should be the homeowner, the landowner's right to decide what they would like on their property.
And I do not disagree with that one bit. My wife has epilepsy, so if I can tap into this and save some money to pay her $2,500 a month in pills would be nice, but if it's not gonna do that for me, I just didn't want, I was just curious on what it was gonna do.
How much land do you own?
I own an acre. I don't own it up for nothing. I'm just curious about where it's gonna go. I'm gonna have to look at it. I'm gonna look outside and look at it. I don't bitch about anybody's properties. I don't care what you do with the property. It's yours. Leave me out of it. I don't care.
I see a new question in the back.
Well, I'm kind of with this gentleman because he doesn't know anything about this, neither do I. I'm Patricia Butts. I own 25 acres on Cone Road and I've been there 42 years. And I haven't received any information at all about any of this. So we're kind of like just coming here to find out things.
Okay.
We don't know if we can make money off of it. We don't know what it looks like until you just told us that's what we came here for.
Okay.
I did anyway.
Alright.
Ask questions.
Very well. Well, these gentlemen up here might be interested in knowing where your property's at. Maybe it would make sense for them to visit with you.
And I'll stick around as long as folks want after the meeting to answer questions and stuff too. But, you know, that aren't planning commission related or whatever.
Right.
Rick Tiger, and maybe I'll spill the beans on him, but I've been dealing with Nick and Brian and Dave for over 2.5 years with the project. So far, what they've said, been pretty honest what I've got done with them yet. I haven't signed up with them yet. All mine is burying underground wires. I was also involved with them, I wasn't gonna work around towers. And they come back and says, would you be willing to do it underground? Let's talk about it and see what happens. My questions to them were, mine go north or south of me, I don't care. They didn't go north, they didn't go south, and they didn't go east because they said there was too many houses that way. They went west, and then this overlay, I agree with Dan there. I disagree with having an overlay there because when these guys come in, they're gonna dictate where they can get on a power line grid and go from there. The easiest and quickest way. I don't think, they're gonna follow some, so that, like I say, that's my comment there, and, like I say, them guys, I've talked with them quite a few times, so.
I have two, just not a couple months. All right.
So, and then, well, like I say, them guys, talking with Nick, and talking, with Dave, they also told me that the power they were allowed was 156. My understanding, you guys are gonna use tilted solar panels, and if they need more power on that line, they can tip them, so they can get more power. If they don't need that much power, they can tip them back so the power is not being generated onto that line to overload it. Is that still correct, or is it different? Sorry, Nick, putting you on the spot.
Yeah, they'll track. Yep, they'll track to try to always follow the sun to get the maximum amount. And if there were ever an incident where, for some reason, the grid is overloaded on a certain day and they can only take so much power, then yeah, you could just shut off part of the panels, or you could tilt them away from the sun as another way of effectively shutting them off for the day.
And then my understanding also, if we get the 2 or 3 inches of snow, they will tip themselves to let the snow melt and run off, so then they're back viable to capture the sunlight again.
Yeah, and the snow actually cleans them off for you, so it's typically a good thing when we get snow.
You swing by and knock the snow off my satellite dish.
And that, and then also my understanding is keep the weeds and grass mowed underneath everything. You're not gonna have weeds growing up 6 foot tall or anything like that. They're gonna be taken care of, keeping it cut low and everything, cause they won't let me graze my cattle in there.
Cattle
Sheep,
springs
we'll turn
fly,
some sheep
fly
out
through
later.
the fly spots, and that makes the solar panels less efficient.
Alright. Are there any more questions from the back of the room? Yes, ma'am.
Rhonda Colthorpe, and I live on Plank Road. If they do go to our property, do we have to let them come through with the wires under our property? And if they do come through, do they pay us for using it or what? How does that work?
Your power lines, if it's transversing, you guys are going through road right away, or as you cross somebody's private property, you will pay them.
We do not have eminent domain,
Oh,
so every landowner we work with has a contract with us.
Right, everybody has a
Full
contract.
If DTE wanted to bring power lines in there, that would be a different situation,
Yeah, they're a public utility.
because they would be able to do that.
But absolutely all power lines are gonna be buried.
Well, they're transmission lines to the power lines, but if DTE decides to bring another line in, they're gonna put it overhead, and it's gonna go, you have no right, say so, or nothing to go through your property, they're gonna go. That's what I see a problem with, not having it in one general location, that's just my opinion, but I can see that.
Did you have another comment?
I do. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that there is an Azalea Solar office on Main Street and Wabash at the Collins Center. All kinds of information displays. I'm a very visual person. It cleared up a lot of things for me, so if you get a chance, stop in. They also have a Facebook page. Ton of information. You can Facebook message them. It helps.
Office hours, every Thursday is when the office is open. So it's staffed 1 day a week.
Okay, what hours?
Not, I think it's like 9 to
Whenever they wake up.
9 to 3, 10 to 4. Whenever Colin drives over from Kalamazoo to Oakland, usually.
That's a heck of a drive.
Facebook's open 24/7.
That's why it's only 1 day a week.
Alright. Is there anything else from the audience?
Anything to do with the taxes, if they do the overlay, will that affect my property taxes by changing it to, or we're gonna leave it alone until they come in with a project and then we say special use permit?
Yeah, it'll be a special use permit.
But I mean, right now, if it's overlaid, it's gonna still remain agricultural one.
Yeah.
Until they come back and say, hey, we're gonna put something here, we need a special use permit.
Your zoning will still be ag one,
Your zoning
your
will still be-
class for your taxation will still be agriculture. And so that's the big factor there. Now, you and I and Dwayne, our biggest problem is what Sears Group paid, and that's what's gonna sneak us up. Cause in the next 14 and a half years, our out-of-pocket cash expense for property taxes will double because of that one sale. You calculate that out with that 5% cap with what they did, yeah, we will see our property taxes for farmland double in the next 14 and a half years.
Well, that's if people keep buying it at the outrageous rate they wanna pay for it. And then I heard the comment, it was 25 years, these guys are talking 50 years.
Yes, so, the typical lifespan of the project's 30 years is what we expect. There's I think in the leases, there's typically an extension that can go longer to 50 years. We wouldn't expect that this would be there that long, but, it's, in the future, if a new, better technology came out and we could get the approvals to continue going, there's a chance that we could extend the life by replacing and with new technology.
That's the reason why you guys are talking to us now, is because 15 years ago, the technology wasn't there for the efficiencies to create electricity at an economic rate, and it's gotten to that point, like when you think about Hubble up there for the last 30 years, it's got solar panel, aluminum foil out there creating the energy. You got the International Space Station for the last 20 years, and it's completely powered with solar. And so, the longevity in this and the science that's come about is proving itself. But technology has changed. It's cell phones, and we went from the 3G, we got the cast me out, and 4G.
Yeah, and I agree with you too, that within 5 or 10 years, you guys will be having new panels. Because of technology will bump it up to where they'd be more efficient.
I'll say that the lifespan of, I think, think solar panels themselves would be expected to be, 25 to 30 years, because they're only losing about, 0.5% to 1% efficiency per year. So even after 30 years, you'd still expect that, 500-watt solar panel to be pumping out 70% of what it was at the outset. There are now solar panels that the National Renewable Energy Laboratory has been studying for 30 years to really prove out that, okay, yeah, the efficiency loss, is only that 0.5% to 1% per year. So yeah, so it would be, the same solar panels could still be there 25, 30 years from now, operating just fine, just like Hubble or the International Space Station.
Alright. Do I see any other comments from the public?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Just real quick, one more time. AzaleaSolar.com. Go there. And then,
Alright,
I'll second.
I'll have a motion and second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Discuss, amongst us, so.
Yeah.
Correct. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Just like the public, just
Yep, public hearing is closed.
You folks had a lot of great input, and I know Carol, the Township Board meets next Monday night. And we will meet the first Monday of November, so we welcome your input, your insight, and we'll be talking about other things as well. So please be part of the community. Thank you.
Alright. You wanna take 3 minutes while folks are clearing out? Alright, let's regroup here. We'll regroup at 8:30 on the clock on the wall.
No shit. Really?
Okay.
Doing a fine job, man. Don't call me sir. I feel like I should turn on 0 to 5.
I'm gonna stop this and I'll start it again when they